In my opinion, one of the most exciting companies in the market right now is Novo Nordisk. In just the last few weeks, this stock has fallen by almost 20%, and year to date, the stock is now down by almost 45%. And what I think we are seeing happen right now is this consolidation occurring before we see a major run up in Novo's stock price. We saw this back in August as well when the stock hit a low of around $45 per share. And now we are only $4 off of that same level. At a certain point, a stock like this does not have any more sellers. And I think that is what we are getting very close to with this company. So in this video, we're going to take a look at Novo's earnings. But before we jump into all of that, I want to go over a few different announcements, a couple of them causing some concerns for investors, but also one very positive outlook for this company. And first, I want to start with this. So recently, Novo Nordisk's top investor seized control of the board, and there have been major changes at the company. This has caused a lot of concerns for investors because of this shakeup really taking place unexpectedly. And the way this headline was written, it almost sounds like some activist investor came into Novo Nordisk and made major changes. However, these changes were a result of an argument between the company and the Novo Nordisk Foundation, which is the top investor in the company. And what this has caused is the chair, as well as 6 independent board members, to quit the company. And basically, what it sounds like is there was a disagreement between the foundation and the board on how the company should position itself around the weight loss market. And overall, the board ended up leaving. And what Novo Nordisk Foundation is doing is they are putting in their own board of directors to really right the company and get them focused on this big growth opportunity. And the way all of this is kind of being perceived is like there has been this major change at Novo Nordisk that could really result in a difference in how the company is ran, which I think overall is actually going to be a good difference. But what they have done is they have brought in different personnel from within the company to run these different roles. So the new chairman of the board is expected to be a former CEO of Novo Nordisk. So they are bringing in someone to run the chair that has a ton of experience at the company. They also recently moved this man, Mike Dostar, into the CEO position. This happened back in August, and he has been a longtime employee of the company and has ran the international operations for Novo Nordisk for a number of years. So even though these feel like major moves at the company, essentially all they have done is shifted around personnel that were existing at the company to sharpen their focus on the obesity market, especially within the US. And the way they have proven that this is their focus is by furthering some of their actions around this. What they have recently announced is that Novo Nordisk is launching a competitive bid to Pfizer for the obesity biotech company Metsera. Novo Nordisk submitted a bid for Metsera of $8.5 billion, with $6 billion of that upfront, as well as the rest being later payments. This tops Pfizer's bid of $7.3 billion. And the way I see Novo Nordisk looking at this bid for the company is what they are trying to do is block out Pfizer from advancing in this market. Right now, the weight loss market is primarily made up of Novo Nordisk and Eli Lilly. They don't want additional competitors coming in and stealing their market share. So now if Pfizer wants to stay in the bid for this company, they only have 4 days to put a new deal together. However, I don't expect that Pfizer is going to put together a higher bid because they are calling this Novo bid reckless and saying that they will pursue any sort of legal action needed to prevent the deal from going through. And of course, the deal between Metsera and Novo Nordisk would have to make it through the FTC, so there are some potential roadblocks already standing in the way. But honestly, Novo may just be doing this, even though it could get blocked by the FTC, to slow down Pfizer from getting into the market. Because if you think about it, if Novo is able to be one of the top players and get very well established in the market, we've talked about this before, but a lot of people do not switch their medication unless there are are side effects that would really cause them to want to look for some other different medication, they're not going to look to switch away from Novo Nordisk or even Eli Lilly medications. So at that point, if the FTC were to block this deal 1 to 2 years down the road, Novo has probably already established a very strong market share. So right now, Novo Nordisk is seeing a major shakeup from the management team. They're making large cash acquisitions that by investors are being perceived as coming from a spot of weakness where they are potentially losing market share and trying to buy additional market share. And then finally, Trump came out and said that he wants to see GLP-1's prices drop in a major way.
As an example, in London, you'd buy a certain drug for $130, and even less than that, I guess $88 as of a count a month ago. And in New York, you pay $1,300 for the same thing. So now we're going to be paying, instead of $1,300, you'll be paying about $150. And they'll be paying $150 too. We're going to pay the same thing. Favored nations. It's beautiful. It's a beautiful thing. And we've been ripped off by the whole world for a long period of time.
You mentioned a $1,300 drug at the top of this. Were you referring to the weight loss drugs?
Yeah, I was referring to Ozempic.
So clearly there's a major push from this administration to try and keep some of these weight loss drugs lower in price. And this could have an effect on Eli Lilly and Novo Nordisk and any other players in this market, their overall margin when it comes to the sales of these drugs. But right now, negotiations are still taking place, and we haven't seen those effects hit companies yet. Eli Lilly actually just announced their earnings just a couple of days ago, and the stock moved up by over 5% after the announcement. And that's because the company posted very positive earnings and even increased their guidance for the full year. And all of this was on the back of their two weight loss drugs, which are Zepbound and Mounjaro. Mounjaro experienced revenue growth of 109% year over year to $6.52 billion of revenue. And Zepbound saw an increase of 184% year over year to now bringing in $3.57 billion of revenue. So these are very strong numbers out of Eli Lilly, especially around the weight loss market, showing a continued momentum in this area of their business. And this should translate over to strong numbers out of Novo Nordisk. Right now, Novo is expected to announce their next earnings on November 5th before the market opens. And right now, analysts are expecting the company to put up around 65 cents of EPS in this quarter. That would be a decrease year over year of around 30% from the 94 cents of EPS they put up in 2024. In my opinion, this number is a little bit low. I think that they could put up closer to 80, maybe even 85 cents of EPS in this quarter, especially based on the results that we are seeing from Eli Lilly. And for top line numbers, analysts are expecting the company to put up revenue of $11.88 billion. That would be an increase of only 8% year over year from $11.01 billion in 2024. Again, in my opinion, I think that this estimate is very low. I think that they should grow by about double this, maybe 15%, which would put their revenue for the quarter at around 12.6, maybe even $12.7 billion. And if they only put up 7 to 8% revenue growth year over year, that would be extremely disappointing. We haven't seen growth numbers that low since 2020. And over the last couple of years, we've easily seen the company grow between 15 to even 43% year over year. So for them to put up around 15%, to me, that would show that they are still at least a little on track. I would love to see higher numbers, maybe even 20% growth year over year. But I think for the company to put up 12.6, maybe even $12.7 billion in a quarter, that would be a record quarter and show that they are still on track and still capturing market share in the weight loss and GLP-1 market. And in my opinion, what makes Novo Nordisk a very interesting play is the valuation that investors are currently putting on the company. The forward P ratio for this stock is sitting at a 14.08. What this tells me is that investors are expecting little to no growth over the course of the next year. In my opinion, this company should grow between 10 to 15% over the course of the next year on the conservative side. If we see their oral GLP-1 come out and that really gain a lot of traction, as well as a lot more support from insurance companies on these GLP-1 drugs, I think overall the company could grow much quicker than 15%. But right now, 10 to 15% is on the conservative side. And if the company is able to achieve that over the course of the next 1 to 2 years, then I think they should easily trade in line with the S&P 500, which right now is sitting at a forward P ratio of a 22. But let's just say I'm wrong. Let's say the company is only growing their top line by around 5%, maybe 7% over the course of the next couple of years. And that means that EPS is only growing by around 2 to 5% as well. At that point, a forward P ratio of a 15 is probably fair. And in that scenario, we're still seeing positive returns from Novo Nordisk, anywhere between $56 and $58 per share. And I'd love companies where even in the bear case, I could find a way to make money. But in a bull case, we maybe see an expansion of valuation to more in line with the market. Let's say a 25 forward P ratio. At that point, this stock could be trading between $90 and $95 per share. But that's just looking at EPS staying in line with what analysts are expecting and them really putting up average numbers of maybe around 7 to 10% growth. In my opinion, again, I think that they should easily grow between 10 and 15% on a bear case. In that situation, EPS could expand by around 15% to around $4.15 in 2026. If we see that occur, I think this company should easily trade at a 20 PE ratio, if not a 25 PE ratio. That would be a price target between $85 and $105 per share. But again, these are my more bearish numbers for Novo Nordisk. I think 10 to 15% again is conservative. If we see Novo Nordisk get first to market on oral medication should take off in a major way compared to injectables, and that could expand their market and their growth even further. So my price target for Novo Nordisk by the end of 2026 is somewhere around $85 per share. And again, that is super conservative. I think there is the possibility, if we see further expansion of their valuation, for this stock to get into the range of $100 to $120 per share. But again, I like to be a little bit more conservative. I think by the end of 2026, we should see $85 per share. So what does this mean for me and my portfolio? Well, Novo Nordisk, if it goes up to $85 per share, that would be almost a 70% return from the current stock price. So this is a stock that I think will outperform the market in 2026. So I need to position a little bit more heavily into the company over the next couple of months. And right now, this is the YouTube portfolio, and it is sitting at a value of $87,000. So what this means for me right now is Novo Nordisk, I have 95 shares at a market value of $4,600 with a cost basis of $5,200. That means I'm down a little over 11% currently. What I plan to do is add more shares to this position running into earnings, because I think what we are seeing right now is a consolidation of the last few investors that want to sell this company getting out of the company before this earnings announcement. And I personally think that this earnings is going to be very positive for the company and could lead to further momentum in the fourth quarter for Novo Nordisk. But of course, I would love to hear your thoughts down in the comment section. This is all just my opinion, so make sure not to buy a company just because some random guy on YouTube talked about it. But let me know, what are your thoughts? What is your price target for Novo for 2026? And what do you think is going to happen after this earnings announcement? Let me know down below in the comment section. And while you're down there, drop a like on the video and subscribe for more videos like this one. And as always, have a wonderful rest of your day.